everybody, welcome to Trek Mission Log. My name is Jason Gilbert and I am so happy that you are here with me. If this is your first time here, what we're doing is I'm analyzing and reviewing every Star Trek series, episode, film, and animated series. And currently we are in season 2 of the original series. So we have a long journey ahead of us. I want to say thank you for getting this channel to over 200 subscribers. I am honored and I am humbled at the same time. So when we reach 250 subscribers, I'm going to do a giveaway. That'll be our second giveaway on this channel. And as we get closer to that 250 mark, I will give you all the details on that. So stay tuned. And if you enjoy this channel and this content, would you please go ahead and hit that subscribe button? It would sure mean a lot to me and it would help me out big time. Also, you can hit that notification button so that you never miss out on an episode. And I am also on Instagram at Trek Mission Log, and we can interact with each other on there. Now today, we're going to be examining an absolutely incredible episode from the original series. Season 2, Episode 6, titled The Doomsday Machine. It aired on October the 20th, 1967. Written by Norman Spinrad, directed by Mark Daniels, and produced by Gene L. Kuhn. So, check out this interesting fact from this episode, and then we'll come back and dive right in. As Captain Kirk walks onto the bridge, a communications officer, who is not Uhura, gives him information about a distress signal. The message was garbled, but they were able to make out the name Constellation, referring to the ship that sent out the distress signal. As Sulu tries to pinpoint exact location, Spock chimes in and tells Kirk that this entire system has been destroyed. We then see rubble and asteroids on the screen. Spock said that last year they charted 7 planets in that system and now there is only debris. We then see the Enterprise navigating through an asteroid field. The Enterprise cannot locate the ship. Now we are told that Matt Decker is in command, Commodore Matt Decker. Spock tells Kirk that 2 of the innermost planets of this system are still intact. Then they pick up the Constellation's disaster beacon. And as they approach the ship, they notice that it is heavily damaged. Spock said, probably by the same thing that destroyed these star systems. Kirk said they were attacked and put the Enterprise on red alert. We then fade into the title sequence. When we come back, Kirk orders a sensor scan of the area for any other ships. Spock gives Kirk a report of the damage done to the Constellation. All power plants are dead. Emergency power is operative, but at the lowest possible level, and there's minimal life support on the ship. Kirk lowers the alert to yellow. He orders the communications officer to have McCoy, Scotty, and a damage control team meet him in the transporter room, and Spock leaves Kirk in command. The landing party beams over to the Constellation. Now, other than Scotty, there are no red-shirted crewmen, so the death toll should be low. The ship is heavily damaged. Kirk orders Scotty to check the phaser banks while McCoy stays with Kirk. Kirk notices no bodies and is wondering if they beamed down to one of the intact planets. Spock said it was improbable because one has an atmosphere that is poisonous to humans while the other is too hot for humans to survive. Scotty then tells Kirk that they can play the captain's logs to find out what happened. As they are searching through the Constellation, Kirk finds Commodore Matt Decker. He is alive, but he appears to be in a state of shock. McCoy gives him a hypo spray. Decker said that there was a thing out there that destroyed his ship, and as he says it, he has a look of terror on his face. It's then that Scotty begins playing the logs, and Kirk said that he wanted the tapes sent to Spock for full analysis. Decker said that they were attacked and it left the ship adrift. He had to beam people down to the third planet in the system, and he stayed behind with the ship. Then the thing hit again. Kirk asked what it was. Decker's response, "They say there is no devil, but there it was, right out of hell." Kirk gets a report from a crew member from the damage control crew. Whatever attacked the Constellation was able to deactivate the antimatter in the warp nacelles. Decker described the attacker as something that is miles long and an opening big enough to swallow a dozen ships, and it can destroy planets. And it uses a pure anti-proton beam to slice the planets up. After analyzing the tapes, Spock hails Kirk. He said that whatever attacked them is a huge weaponized robot of immense power. It slices planets and then eats the debris for fuel. Sulu was able to ascertain the path of the device and that it came from outside the galaxy, and if it maintains its current path, it will pass through the most densely populated part of their own galaxy. McCoy wants to know why an alien race would build such a thing. Kirk talks about the Doomsday Machine, built as a bluff but had the power to destroy both sides during a war. Kirk thinks this thing is a Doomsday Machine that someone used in a war years ago. McCoy is getting ready to beam back with Decker, while Kirk remains aboard to get the Constellation ready to be towed. As they beam over, the ship is in a state of red alert. Decker and McCoy rush to the bridge. Spock said it came on them fast, but so far they can keep their distance. And then we get our very first look at the Doomsday Machine, a gigantic, menacing device that is now pursuing the Enterprise. The Enterprise, with the Constellation in tow, is trying to outrun the device. Spock reports to Kirk that it is gaining on them, and he said that it contains a total conversion drive. Kirk said they have to stop it and asks what the chances of deactivating it are. Spock said absolutely none. Kirk ordered deflector screens lowered so that they could beam aboard. And just at that moment, the machine fired at them, and it knocked out the transporter. There's also damage in communications, making it hard for them to communicate with the landing party. Kirk tells Scotty to give him some maneuverability with the Constellation. McCoy asks Spock how they're doing. They've outrun the machine, and communications and transporter are under repair. The machine is veering off and is now headed for the Rigel colony. Spock said they would maintain a discreet distance while they circle around to pick up Kirk. Decker questions Spock's orders. Spock orders Sulu to lay an evasive course. Decker orders Sulu to delay that order and to do a 180-degree turn to get ready to attack. Spock told Sulu to carry out his order, and it is here where Decker relieves Spock of command. Spock, maintaining his demeanor, said, "You tried to kill it before, and the result was a dead ship and a dead crew." Savage. Decker put a stop to it, and so Spock relinquishes the center seat to Commodore Decker. McCoy protests. Decker commands him to leave the bridge. Decker then gives the order to go after the Doomsday Machine and ready main phaser banks. And while they are approaching the machine, Decker is playing nervously with ship's tapes, while Spock quietly observes. Meanwhile, on the Constellation, Scotty is trying to get the ship moving, and Kirk is trying to get the screen operational. Now, as the Enterprise approaches the machine fires at it. Decker orders Sulu to get them in closer. On the Constellation, Kirk is able to get the screens operational, and he sees the Enterprise attacking the machine. After direct phaser hits, there is no damage to the enemy machine. Spock recommended that they withdraw. Decker ordered to maintain course, and their phasers have no effect. Kirk tries to hail the Enterprise, no response. He tells Scotty to push the impulse engines to the edge because they need to get the Constellation moving. The machine fires again at the Enterprise. It is causing the ship to drain power, and casualties are reported on decks 3 and 4. The Doomsday Machine now has the Enterprise in a tractor beam. Decker wants to fire phasers again, but it is a suicide mission. And Spock tells Decker if he continues this way, Spock would deem him unfit to command. So they attempt to veer off, but they don't have the power necessary to do it. Now, Kirk, with the screen operational, is observing his ship being pulled into the machine. And so they try to get the Constellation moving. And it causes that ship to rock violently back and forth, but eventually they get her moving. The Enterprise can't break away from the tractor beam. Scotty was also able to recharge one phaser bank, and all of these will earn him in the future the reputation of being a miracle maker. They fire phasers, and the machine releases the tractor beam to turn its attention to the Constellation. But now the Constellation is in trouble, so the Enterprise fires its phasers to stop the machine from going after that ship, and it worked. The machine is now refueling itself on debris from the dead planets. Meanwhile, communications with the Constellation have been restored. Kirk wants to speak with Spock, but Decker chimed in and told Kirk that he assumed command because Spock was hesitant to attack the machine. Kirk called Decker a lunatic. He keeps demanding to speak with Spock and to get Decker to get his ship out of there. Decker allows Spock to give Kirk the ship's status, and Kirk told Sulu from the communicator to take evasive action. Decker countermanded that order and said they will attack. Kirk then gives Spock a direct order to relieve Decker of command. Spock tells him he is relieved. Decker refuses. Spock threatens arrest. He said Spock was bluffing, to which Spock retorted, "Vulcans never bluff." Decker relinquishes the center seat back to Spock. Spock orders the guards to take Decker to sickbay. He then tells Kirk they will try to stay ahead of the machine and head over to pick them up. Meanwhile, in the corridor, Decker attacked the guard and subdued him, knocked him out. Decker then makes his way to the shuttlecraft hangar deck and steals a shuttlecraft and maneuvers it out of the ship. The Enterprise hails the shuttlecraft, and Decker answers. His plan is to take the shuttlecraft down the machine's throat. It is a suicide mission. Kirk and Spock plead with him to stop, but Decker ignores them. And as he flies the shuttlecraft in, it is destroyed inside the machine. Kirk and Spock are both saddened. Spock offers Kirk his condolences on the death of his friend. Sulu notices a drop in power in the machine after the shuttlecraft went in there. The transporters then came back online. Kirk told Spock to beam the damaged control party back to the Enterprise. Kirk has an idea, inspired from Matt Decker, to fly the Constellation inside that machine to destroy it. Spock gets to work to see if that is a possibility. Kirk instructed Scotty to rig the engines to overload with a 30-second delay. Kirk gets back to Spock with the plan to beam aboard the Enterprise 30 seconds before the Constellation is destroyed. Kirk has Scotty then beam aboard the Enterprise, but he has trouble materializing. When he does, They discover that there is a problem with the main junction circuitry, and so Scotty rushes off to fix it. We then see him inside a Jeffries tube working out the problem. Meanwhile, Kirk is maneuvering the Constellation toward the planet killer. Scotty gets the transporter fixed, but it won't last long. Kirk tells them to stand by as he continues to fly the ship toward the planet killer. What a shot that is. Kirk arms the detonator and calls to be beamed aboard. The transporter shorted out again. Scotty climbs back in the Jeffries tube. The clock is ticking. The Constellation explodes inside the planet killer, and at the very last possible second, Kirk is successfully beamed aboard the Enterprise. And the planet killer is dead. Kirk indicated that it will be listed in his report that Matt Decker died in the line of duty. Spock wondered if there were more of these weapons wandering around the universe. Kirk said, "I hope not. I found one to be quite sufficient." With repairs to the warp drive underway, under impulse power, the Enterprise moves away and on to her next mission. What an episode this is. It is completely riveting from start to finish. The story was superb. It was an edge-of-your-seat thrill ride, while at the same time being good science fiction. So, let's go through some things. Let's start with the enemy in this episode, a robot weapon. In my humble opinion, this episode could have been a two-parter. It was very deep. It would have been very cool to find out the origins of this Doomsday Machine. Kirk gave his opinions, but they are merely conjecture. The idea of an old machine that consumes planets for fuel is an amazing science fiction concept. I cannot help but wonder if in the creation of the Borg for the next generation that they took some of their cues from this episode, as this device had a proton beam that could slice planets. Also, when the Enterprise was firing phasers at it, it reminded me of the parallel course that the Enterprise took over V'ger in the motion picture. The shots with the Enterprise compared against it were fantastic. It gives the scope of the size of this thing, kind of like an ant fighting an elephant. But it was menacing. It was frightening. And in my opinion, the remastered version of this episode really enhances this monstrosity. This episode also showed some very cool battle scenes of the Enterprise from different angles. It was absolutely brilliant to see that displayed on the screen. It was very cool to see what the Enterprise was capable of from outside the ship. Commodore Matt Decker was brilliantly portrayed by William Wyndham. The acting was top-notch. He portrayed the state of shock as well as extreme anxiety and nervousness very well. Now, my very good friend John Kirkhoff, a fellow Trekkie, pointed this out to me. As he sat in the command chair, he was fidgeting with a couple of the ship's memory tapes, and it reminded him of the great old movie starring Humphrey Bogart titled The Caine Mutiny. And I have to agree, I've seen that movie a couple of times. Humphrey Bogart is a naval captain under duress and in a state of nervousness would fidget with these metal ball bearings, these steel marbles. Decker and Spock's confrontations were fantastic. You could cut the tension with a knife. It was brilliant. Now, while I am talking about Matt Decker, a little while ago, I found this gem in a used bookstore. The book is the novelization of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, And this particular novel was written by Gene Roddenberry himself. In fact, this is novel number 1 in the Star Trek books book series. Now, I don't believe that this is revealed in the film, but in the novelization of the motion picture, Commodore Matt Decker is identified as Commander Will Decker's father. Pretty cool. Now, I will talk a little more about this book down the road when I review the motion picture, because I really feel it is a great companion piece to the film. Another plus for this episode is that the Enterprise itself becomes a character. We also see another ship from the fleet. I do love the episodes where all of the action takes place on board the ship. Scotty had a great part in this episode. He has shown that he can command the screen. He does his best to follow Kirk's sometimes unreasonable orders, but he's also not afraid to stand up to him when the need arises. Scotty was absolutely brilliant in this episode. Another bright spot is that no red-shirted crewman died. We've seen our fair share of that this season. The only area of weakness that I can find in this episode is the absence of Chekhov and Uhura. We had 2 unknowns in their place, and their absence is very noticeable. In this episode, the communications officer had a lot of dialogue. In my opinion, that should have gone to Uhura. That aside, the Doomsday Machine is an incredible episode. I give it 5 out of 5 Starfleet insignias for awesomeness. Make sure you put this one on your to-do list to watch. Absolutely brilliant. Well, that takes care of this week's installment of Trek Mission Log, and it is my sincere hope that you enjoyed it. I would love to read your thoughts about this episode, so please drop some comments below. I do love reading them, and I try my best to respond to all of them. And I also invite you to join me next time as we take a close look at Star Trek's Halloween special. Yes, you heard that right. Star Trek's Halloween special titled Cat's Paw. Should prove to be interesting. I hope you have an incredible weekend and week ahead. Stay healthy. Until next time, live long and prosper.